WNST, it's at knees and the NFL and the Ravens trip to the Raiders and what's going on with the Ravens offense and defense. And meanwhile, we did have one football team win a game on the road here last weekend. The Maryland Terps went out to Minnesota and defeated the Golden Gophers and now come back home here to sort of get ready for Ohio State. Tim Strachan's on the Terps radio team, and he's getting ready for the number 10 team in the country. But there is a sort of renewed optimism after the egg that was laid against Central Florida. Correct, Tim?
It's almost like us, pundits and guys on the radio and even fans are like Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, or bipolar in terms of how we want to support this team. Because it's at the beginning of the season, it was like, oh my God, these guys are going to be great, and then one loss, it was like, this season's over. But now they've won one more, and people are getting excited again. So it's been kind of a roller coaster, only through 4 games.
Well, and the roller coaster has been because we're 4 games in and we're 3 quarterbacks deep. And, I had a lot of Goldschlager back in the day. So every time I saw all those letters on the back of the jersey on Sunday, reminded me of some college parties. But, this kid looks like he's a different kind of quarterback than the other two. Certainly a different kind of athlete. But I don't know how this is going to play. If he gets some protection, certainly they run the ball. They have a special wide receiver. There's no reason that late in the day on Saturday we can't look up and at least see a ball game out in Ohio, right?
I think you're right. I mean, listen, let's just deal with Max first. I was never down on Max, even after the UCF game. I understood from my experience and knowing what probably happened behind the scenes is that, Kasim Hill was a true freshman who had a bye week, and he was getting ready for, getting into the meat of the season as the leader of this team. So I'm sure they gave him, and I'm just throwing out percentages, but let's say they gave him 90% of the snaps in practice, 90% of the reps. Max got the rest. When he got thrust into that UCF game because of the injury to Kasim, you could tell he was off a little bit. He was behind receivers or a little high. He wasn't making reads in the read zone, the zone read game very well. That, to me, as an analyst and somebody who's been doing this for a long time, was more rust than it was ineffectiveness. And I felt like if he had a full week of practice, a full week of first-team reps, and a game plan kind of catered more to what he can do as opposed to what he can't, there was no reason why Max couldn't be successful. He's a Division I quarterback. Now, he may be 3rd or arguably 4th on the Maryland roster, but he's a Division I quarterback, and he showed that this past weekend. He's not going to go out and put up video game numbers or anything like that. He's going to manage the game. You don't want to put it on his shoulders, but allow him to be in a position to put the ball in the hands of those that can make plays, like DJ Moore. And as long as they can do that and the whole team can play the type of game that they played against Minnesota, they can hang with anybody. Now, going into Ohio State is going to be a tough game to come out of with a win. But what I really want to see is I want to see the same effort that we saw in the Minnesota game as opposed to the UCF game. And as long as Maryland can put that effort in, sure, they can make it difficult. I just would like them to make this a difficult game for Ohio State.
If you would have told me they would be 3-1 heading to Ohio State, I would have taken that. And obviously, you don't ever want to take a 38-10 loss the way they did at home 2 weeks ago in such a demoralizing fashion. But one thing we talked about before they even kicked the ball, Tim, was that this was going to be a special kind of schedule for them. We talked about last year, Ohio State and Michigan back-to-back and all the things that happened last year when they lost quarterbacks and went down the hill and lost 62-3 and all that other stuff. They're going to see the number 10, 9, 7, and 4 teams in the country here every other week for the next 9 weeks, right?
Yes, and to be honest with you, the 10, 9, 7, and 4 teams are the teams that I think pretty much everybody, other than Durkin and the kids who are in that Gossett team house, have written down as 4 guaranteed losses on this season. They're not supposed to be, contending for the Big East, or the Big Ten East title this year. They're supposed to show market improvement. And I think so far this season, outside of the UCF game where there was some devastating injuries and things of that nature and some things that just kind of got out of hand, I think they've shown that progress. I really think that they've shown that the product on the field is much better than it was a year ago. And they're going to go into Ohio State, and they're going to put up a much better fight, I hope, than what you've seen in the past. And Ohio State this year is not the Ohio State that I think Maryland's played in the last three. I think that they're a little bit more vulnerable. I think that they're having their own struggles and their own troubles, even though they're one of the best teams in the nation. And I'm not calling for Maryland to go in there and shock the world with an upset, but I do think Maryland's going to go in there and give them a better game than they're expecting from the Terps.
Well, is there a point where Ty Johnson's really going to get the ball more, that we've just been playing around a little bit here early on, that the recipe here would be, let's give the kid the ball 20, 25 times, let's see what happens, because whether it's 3rd and 12 or whether it's 2nd and 2, he's the best option you have to get 2 yards or 20 on any run, right?
No, I like the system. I like the system that Walt Bell is using right now with Lolo and Ty. It would be. I can see how some people would say, "Hey, give him the ball every time, give him the ball more." But with the change in direction, the change in speed, the change in just their skill set, I think it keeps a defense honest. I think it keeps their legs fresh. Look, Lolo's going to get his breakout game. There's no doubt about it. I know he's frustrated. I think he may be pressing a little too hard because maybe Ty's getting a lot more of the credit for some of the things and some of the big plays he's had. Lolo's going to get his, and when he starts getting his, that's going to open up more opportunities for Ty. I don't think you just run it 25 times, 30 times with Ty. I think that's going to be too much on him. It's going to wear him down, and it's going to make him less effective in those big moments that he's been able to produce. You use a two running back system. Throw Jake Funk in there every once in a while. Maybe even Javon Leak starts coming on, or some of the other younger guys, to give people fresh legs. I think that is truly the way that football has changed at the college and the pro level. You hardly have that feature back anymore. You need to have guys that can keep everybody fresh and to take some of the load off of everybody.
Well, I mean, if there is a bell cow, it would be him. There is not. They're going to move this thing around. One thing for sure with Kasim Hill, when you saw him running around against Towson, it was very obvious what a special athlete he was. Same thing with Pigram, and these are young guys. These are guys that I think into next season, when we're getting ready for the next version of this, you would look up and say, they've got some seasoned quarterbacks here and some special athletes once they get these guys healthy, that the future is a lot brighter based on how well freshmen and sophomores have played for this team, right?
I think you're right. I think if you're a Maryland fan, you can take solace in that the future does look bright for the Maryland football program. Some of the guys that aren't even playing right now are better than the ones that are on the field. And I don't want to get into a long discussion about it, but, I mean, just one of the guys that pops in my mind is Anthony McFarland. This is a kid who has the potential to be a major Division I All-American type player. His body just isn't isn't quite there yet. But let's say Ty moves on after this year because he's a junior. He can be eligible for the NFL draft. You bring in a guy like Anthony McFarland. That's the type of program that DJ Durkin is building out in College Park right now. One that has, great athletes, but also great athletes and depth.
Well, the third-string quarterback thing coming in and beating Minnesota on the road, that's not talking about having depth. That's legitimately having depth.
It is.
And it would be the same thing for the Ravens right now, who are really struggling with their star players. And, there is no depth. There is a salary cap in the NFL. In college football, if you can get kids like Bortenschlager, who probably could have been a starter at Towson or a starter somewhere else, to be a part of the program and then get his chance and can actually go in there and do it, that's part of how you grow in the Big Ten. The depth is what sets the conference apart, right?
It's absolutely what sets it apart. And really, that's the biggest difference in the past years with playing against a team like Ohio State. I think Maryland's had players on their first 22, their starting 11 on offense, their starting 11 on defense that can match up with the first 22 of an Ohio State, a Michigan, or whatever. It was the second 22 that didn't quite match up. Now I think that for Maryland's program, that second 22 is getting there. They're not quite there yet, but it's getting there. And as long as DJ can continue to build that depth and bring in this talent, they're going to start making waves in the Big Ten East and in the Big Ten as a whole. And I think this weekend is going to be a great barometer about where that program is. I don't think that this is a team that's going to tank if they get down 2 scores. I think they're going to fight back and make it a little bit closer than they have in the past. At least that's what I'm hoping to see, and I think that's what Maryland fans are hoping to see. And hell, if they, for some reason, shock the world, how awesome would that be? I mean, it would be, look, Joel Statham was the first one that beat Florida State when they were in the ACC. Why can't Matt Bortenschlager be the one to do it in the Big Ten against Ohio State. So that's why you tee it up and play the game.
4 o'clock game time. Tim Strachan will be on the scene there. You can follow him out on Twitter at T13Strachan. That's Strachan. Radio color analyst for Maryland football. Also does some motivational speaking. If you're familiar with Tim's incredible story as well, you can find that out on the internet. One thing for DJ Durkin and you're laughing at me. 4 weeks into this and in this season, the one thing I would say is DJ Durkin's a hell of a coach. I don't know much about him. I've had him on the show once or twice. I'm watching the team on the field, but I was really shocked to see that sort of the way they hung in against Minnesota, the way they finished the game at the end. That led me to believe that there's a reason to put the television on this week, quite frankly, in a way that 62-3 didn't last year. It did not entice me to get on a plane and go out to Nebraska with you guys last year.
Well, listen, I don't know DJ personally, so I'm looking at this just from a strictly football analyst perspective. The guy knows what it takes to have a program get to where it needs to be. He's been in those programs. He's been with those types of head coaches. He knows the formula, and he's starting to implement that formula in his own way in College Park. It's a really cool thing to watch. It's a cool thing to see the kids buy into what he's trying to do. The coaching staff has been incredible. Even the strength coaching staff has been a huge, significant part of this. The physique of these players is totally different than anything I've ever seen in 22 years. The type of athlete is different than I've seen in any 22 years that I've been doing this. And I think if you're a Maryland fan, you need to start getting really excited about what's happening in College Park, because DJ Durkin knows what he's doing, and he's got this program on an upward trend. And with the facility and all that's going on, it's going to be fun to be a Maryland football fan for quite a while.
Tim, always appreciate the insights here. I'm glad we have something exciting to watch on Saturdays. We're all worried about what we're seeing on Sundays around these parts. Redskins fans, too,
I'm a
I guess.
Redskins fan, man. Talk about depth. Dude, I think we lost our entire starting defensive unit last night.
Yeah,
But they play tough. They play tough.
Oh, and the Chiefs look okay as well. I mean, we're all trying to figure out where the good teams in the NFL are. I thought Oakland was going to be one of those teams. We're going out there, and E.J. Manuel's going to quarterback them, and they still might beat us this week for all I know.
Hey, Ohio State. Tell Harbaugh, 4-man rush. You can get a 4-man rush on the Raiders. That'd be all right.
I'm worried about the other Harbaugh on November 11th, right? I mean, this is an interesting schedule the rest of the way, too, Tim, right? I mean, Ohio State, home against Northwestern in a game that's winnable, then out to Camp Randall. That's the weekend that the Ravens are out in Minnesota. Then a couple of winnable games. Indiana, but the Yankee Stadium game. I got my press credential stuff on that. A lot of folks don't realize that the Terps are playing at Yankee Stadium on November 4th.
Yeah, no, the whole schedule really is an exciting schedule. I think that Maryland gets a tough break getting Wisconsin, from one of the cross-divisional games. But they're going to have to take on the Big Four, the Big Ten, and DJ Durkin and these kids aren't shying away from it. They're accepting the challenge. And I can see the effort, that's out on the field. I can see the effort in practice. I can see the effort in the off season. There's just different things happening in College Park, and it's a good thing.
Well, we're watching 4 o'clock on Saturday. Tim will be out in the Horseshoe at how I hate Ohio State. They're number 10 in the country. You can follow Tim at T13Strachan. That's Strachan. Always good to have him here. You can find me out in the Buy a Toyota Audio Vault 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world on your mobile device by downloading the TuneIn Radio app. We do come in crystal clear from anywhere in the world. Our morning newspaper ships to your email inbox at 7 a.m. each and every morning. That's all powered up by Planet Fitness and PlanetFitness.com. Last but never least, breaking news happens first on the WNST Tech Service. That's all brought to you by our friends at Coons Ford of Security Boulevard. Of course, Dennis will be here on Thursday driving you home from 3 until 5, getting you ready for the Ravens in Oakland. Luke's on the backfields out in Owings Mills. If there is any breaking news, you'll get it first on the injury report. We're all waiting on Brandon Williams, amongst others, here this week. Good news is we do get a backup quarterback in Oakland. So little miracles for the guys in purple right now as we're all in the infirmary around here. I'm out on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, streaming live on our Facebook as well as our YouTube WNSTV channel. Mourning the loss of the great Tom Petty on the back end of my beloved Kitty in this incredible senseless tragedy in Las Vegas. And by the way, we are looking for a new home for our Ravens live shows coming up the rest of the year. So if you know of a bar, restaurant, grill owner who would like to host our WNST events and our swabbings for the Bone Marrow Registry, and for There Goes My Hero, have them toss me a note. Nasty@WNST.net finds me. I am Nestor. We are WNST.net, AM 1570 and WNST Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.